You're listening to the Fierce Valley Podcast, episode 116. Is there a game-changing new weight loss drug? Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Hello, welcome to the episode. I'm your host, Vinnie Wellesby. I do realise that I need to change many things where it's got my old name on it, but I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. Recording a new intro, it's not actually that difficult, but do you know what I mean? You don't realise how your name is everywhere. So just hear me saying, when I say Victoria, you hear me saying Vinnie. Okay, just do that. Transpose in your head. I got a funny message from Summer in yesterday, and it is important that we include this. Last episode talking about TV shows and whatnot, and Summer sent a frantic message. Well, I don't know if she was frantic when she sent it, but let's pretend she was. Frantic, she messaged. I realise we failed to talk about how the women on Friends always wore thin shirts with their rock-hard nipples showing. Do you remember that? It may be one of my life's biggest regrets that we forgot this key point. And then crying, laughing emoji. I responded, LOL, no, I didn't remember that. Do you think they were wearing prosthetic nipples? Summer responded, either that or they iced them between scenes. And I say, maybe they had some boy whose job it was, like a fluffer in porn films. In case you don't know that term, fluffer, in porn productions, there might be someone who is not an actress or actor or gender neutral. I'd say gender neutral is probably actor. It's not their job to be on film, but their job to maybe like suck off someone to make sure that their dick is hard in between scenes. That's the fluffer. Anyway, so maybe they had fluffers fluffing their nipples in between. And then Summer sent me the Reddit. There's a whole Reddit thing about it. As a newbie to Friends, what is it with all the nipples? And I said, LOL, oh my God. And then this is even better. My Google autofill, Summer's Google autofill was, why are Rachel's nipples always showing in Friends? And here's the answer, she says. Did you know that Friends' producers told Rachel and Monica to cut holes in their bras to show their nipples? You do know she made wardrobe cut holes in her bras so nips would show. Turns out that's a rumor. Jennifer Aniston has said that didn't happen. That's just what happened to her nips. Her nips were just there. Someone says, also, Somebody Somewhere is a new show on HBO and so far has great representation. Lead is a fat female comic. I'm only 3 episodes in, but I love it. So there you go, a little tip for you. I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. Maybe I should do that to my bras, but the holes would be pointing down, so not much point. I wonder why they didn't get Phoebe to do the same. Were her nips not good enough? Summer responds, good question. She was a kind of quirky character versus sexy. And I responded, funny women don't have nipples, don't you know? Someone says, they can't possibly. And I said, I think you should add this as an addendum to the podcast when you release it, as the world needs to know this info. Someone says, I will. So now you know too about the Friends' nipples. If that was on your mind and you're like, oh my God, Summer and Vinny are definitely going to be talking about the nipple situation in Friends, and we didn't, and you were like, oh, I'm so disappointed. There you go. There you have it. And if you didn't even know about the nipple situation, like me, because obviously at the time I just was like, there's nipples, and it gave me such nipple. I remember at the time being like, something wrong with my nipples. Why are my nipples showing? As like a 14-year-old child. Oh my goodness. And you remember at the time as well, maybe a little bit later, in Sex and the City, there was an episode where Samantha put in prosthetic nipples to get a guy to have sex with her. And that was on one of the Reddit things. I was like, oh yes, I remember. I think nipples were just really hot in the 90s. Maybe they're making a comeback, who knows? But either way, there you go. There you have it. So this fine day, this fine, cold yet sunny day, I was interviewed by Lucy Edwards, who is a trainee journalist at the University of Sheffield. And Lucy has got an interest in fat shit. Great interview where Lucy was asking about atypical anorexia and the connection with the new I've spoken about it before, like 25-ish episodes ago, but it's kind of new in the UK, the new drug where weight loss, in big quotation marks, drug, and you know, the idea of prescribing atypical anorexic people a weight loss drug and like the harm that it can cause. Atypical anorexia, if you're not sure what that is, it just means anorexia in fat people. So it's just anorexia. So atypical, oh my God, fat people don't eat? How weird is that? That's sarcasm, by the way. So I am going to read you a piece from The Guardian, which talks about this game-changing new drug. And I'm going to... it's not long, but I'm going to point out the problems here. Then you can listen to the interview with Lucy, and then I'm going to wrap it all up with all the, you know, juicy of what we've learned about this. Because there's been a lot of hubbub in the UK about this drug. It's called Wegovy, and it's been approved by NICE, and NICE is the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. Not a lot of excellence going on with these recommendations and approving of this drug, unfortunately. But of course, the people at NICE, the people everywhere, suffer from fat phobia. So, of course, they're going to do everything they can to cure this illness, this lifelong condition that is fatness, even if it means killing fat people. Who cares about them dying? At least they're not on the planet. Oh God. So trigger warning, if you don't want to hear fat phobic fuckery, I'm going to edit out the O words and just replace them with fat or fatness. And so you're not going to hear the O words, but you're going to hear the presumptions about fatness, which I'm going to talk about. So if that's not feeling good for you today, then skip on, just stay for the nipple talk and then leave, and then you see you in the next episode. But if it is, okay, let me read this piece from The Guardian. Okay, so this was from 8th of Feb 2022. Quote, game-changing, end quote, weight loss drug to be made available on NHS National Health Service. NICE approves use of semaglutide, opening door to new treatment for thousands of adults with fatness. So semaglutide is the drug, and then Wegovy is like the brand name. Okay, so thousands of people with fatness in England will be able to get a new weight loss drug on the NHS after a watchdog approved its use. Patients on the weekly injections have seen their weight fall by an average of 12% in 1 year. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE, said. Okay, so first off, weekly injections sounds fun, but hey, when I was hating my fatness, if someone said weekly, will you go and eat a dog shit in the hopes of being thin, fuck yeah, I'd do it. Weekly, would you inject human shit into your eyeballs? Yes, I would. So you know, a weekly injection, that's fucked. But I can imagine it's not a huge barrier to people who are desperately wanting to be thin. And, okay, so have seen their weight fall by an average of 12%. So what that means, 12%, is, the study shows that's about 20 pounds. Wow, 20 pounds? Game changer. I mean, anyone could lose 20 pounds quite easily, especially when we're starting out dieting. You know, lose 20 pounds in a couple of months. I lose 20 pounds when I do a big fucking shit. So, you know, 20 pounds. I don't think that 20 pounds is the game changer that fat people are looking for, right? When they're looking about game changing amounts of weight loss, they're thinking 50, 100, more, right? And so if we begin to scratch the surface even just a little bit, then it's like, doesn't sound as good. Okay, continuing. It has issued draft guidance recommending semaglutide, also known as Wegovy, for adults with at least one weight-related condition, such as obstructive sleep apnea or heart disease, and a body mass index of at least, I won't say what the BMI is. Okay, big problems with that short paragraph there. Can you spot what they might be? Health-related conditions. Okay, health-related. Related. Correlation is not causation. So fatness is not causing sleep apnea. Let's go and have a look at obstructive sleep apnea on the healthsheets.com, the Health Sheet Library. Okay, and let's see what causes sleep apnea. Is it that we are fat bastards, and if we lose weight, then all of a sudden we will not have obstructive sleep apnea? Okay, let's have a look. What causes it? According to Hayes Health Sheets, there are several causes for obstructive sleep apnea. Decrease in upper airway muscle function, structural upper airway factors, craniofacial structure, which is often hereditary, soft tissue structure, including tongue size, pharyngeal walls, and soft tissue of neck, often hereditary. Fluid in soft tissues of neck caused by medical conditions. Oh, hang on a minute. Is it fatness? No? Okay, and so how do we treat obstructive sleep apnea? Is it weight loss? Let's have a look. Overview, breathing therapy, so CPAP, airway pressure devices, oral appliances, so dentist stuff, and in a small number of cases, you might, as a last resort, need a surgery. None of that is to do with weight loss. And so this from The Guardian is saying, well, if you have sleep apnea and you're fat, you're going to get this drug, because obviously sleep apnea is caused by fatness, and being 20 pounds lighter is going to cure your sleep apnea. Okay, not evidence-based. And let's look at heart disease. Let's have a look at heart disease. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Top one on here. Okay. So genetics and environmental factors can play a major role in the development of heart disease. Still, fat patients often have to deal with doctors blaming their body size for the same issues that also affect thin people. That's counterproductive to good medical care. So there's lots of different, there's 4 different types of heart disease, and none of them are caused by fat people being greedy, horrible people. Another thing to remember is that straight-sized people also get heart disease. Surprise, surprise. Straight-sized people also have sleep apnea. Surprise, surprise. So are straight-sized people also going to qualify for this drug, this weight loss drug? Well, that's how you fix these problems, isn't it? Strange. Anyway, let's continue. In exceptional cases, some people with a lower BMI or more may also be able to access the drug, which is self-administered using a pen injector. More than 1 in 4 people in England have fatness, which means having a BMI of X or above. Fatness can be physically debilitating and lead to severe and potentially life-limiting conditions. It costs the NHS and the wider economy billions of pounds a year. I mean, those 2 sentences are just fraught with inaccuracies and presumptions, and is not helpful. So it costs the NHS so much money. How? Of course, fat people are going to cost the NHS money. It's a large percentage of the population. It's like saying men cost the NHS loads of money. Well, yeah, no shit. It's half of the population. You know, old people cost, people with brown eyes cost the NHS billions of pounds. Well, yeah. It's called being a human. And in what ways? And a lot of times, you know what? So often when a fat person dies, their cause of death, if they're fat, is O-word. Their cause of death is fat. It doesn't matter, what was going on. Especially if they have diseases that are linked to fatness, then 100% their cause of death is fatness. Whereas if a thin person has this exact same disease, their cause of death won't be thinness, And so it's like, oh, look at all these people dying of fatness. Are they though? Are they? Or are they dying from things that everyone else dies from, And saying that fatness can be physically debilitating. It just reeks of ableism, and it's just gross. Leads to lead to severe and potentially life-limiting conditions. I mean, it's the human condition, right? It's just the human condition to eventually maybe having a life-limiting condition and then dying. It's like we can change this with living can be physically debilitating and lead to severe and potentially life-limiting conditions. Yeah, Anyway, let's continue. The new drug suppresses the appetite through mimicking the hormone glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, which is released after eating. Patients inject themselves with semaglutide, which makes them feel full, meaning they eat less and lose weight. Now, nice little appetite suppressant, because we all know that fat people are fat. Every fat person is fat because we cannot stop eating. We are out of control with food. That's all we do day and night is eat and eat and eat. So much so, we can't control ourselves. So much so, very kind NHS has had to come up with a way to help us poor fatties with our constant eating. And thank God they've come up with this drug that is going to suppress our appetites, because that's what's going to make us thin. We can't do it ourselves, and so we need an intervention to help us stop being so fucking greedy. That was all sarcasm, by the way, if you didn't get that bit. Yeah, so there's two things there. Two things that are presumed: that fatness is a result of eating too much food, and thinness can be induced by not eating food. Not eating as much food as what apparently we eat all the time. Both are wrong. Okay, so here's a quote. We know that management of fatness and fatness is one of the biggest challenges of our health service is facing, with nearly 2/3 of adults either fat or fat, said Helen Knight, the program director in the Centre for Health Technology Evaluation at NICE. Okay, so management of something that doesn't need to be managed. Management of a disease that isn't real. And it's not the biggest challenges our health service is facing. There is so many. I mean, the biggest challenge in the way that we think about fatness, yeah. I think the bigger challenges are things like lack of access, racism, discrimination, healthcare, mental health care, right-wing thinking about how we treat people. They are the biggest challenges to healthcare, right? Lack of funds, etc. Okay, continuing. It's a lifelong condition that needs medical intervention, has psychological and physical effects, and can affect quality of life. I mean, yeah, the psychological effects are because you say it's a lifelong condition that needs medical intervention. It's not a condition, because the only thing that fat people have in common with each other is that they are fat. We cannot say, okay, this is what we class as, we know that there is a disease here, because the only indicator is fatness. You know, we can't say, okay, we know that this is disease because people have A, B, C, and this is how we diagnose it. Because one fat person's health is going to be different from another fat person's health. It's like saying, hey, this disease of living with blonde hair. Well, what's the common attribute? Blonde hair. Well, no, that's not how it works. Okay, continuing. The NICE document says access to current drug treatments for fatness is limited to specific population who have pre-diabetes and a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Other drug treatment options available are poorly tolerated and rarely used. So we've spoken about it before, even in recent episodes, the idea of pre-diabetes, that a teeny tiny percentage of people who have pre-diabetes go on to develop diabetes. Again, diabetes is a genetic condition. It's just shit on top of shit on top of shit. It adds, the committee concluded that there is a large unmet need for many people living with fatness, and that semaglutide would be a welcome new treatment option. NICE said people from a South Asian, Chinese or Black African or Caribbean Black background would be able to access the drug at a lower BMI after advice from a medic. Because of course we need to put in a bit of racism there. So let's hurt people who are marginalized. Let's give them the drug, versus let's look at actually what's happening. You know, like how people with marginalized identities, people, you know, the mentioning here, South Asian, Chinese, Black African, Caribbean, can have worse health outcomes. We look at why. You know, like the stats about black parents who give birth have, you know, higher mortality, higher risks, all that type of stuff. Is it because of their who they are? No. Is it because of bias, racism, and bigotry? Yes. So how is increasing the bias by forcing a drug that is going to hurt these populations and do the opposite of what it's trying to achieve? How is that not increasing bias? How is that not hurting them even more? So yet again, people of color are getting the short end of the stick. Yet again, due to bias, versus saying, why are people from a South Asian, Chinese, Black, African, or Caribbean background having worse health outcomes? If they are, let's fix that. Versus, it's because of the color of their skin. So, Continuing, patients will only be given semaglutide on prescription as part of a specialist weight management service involving input from several professionals and for a maximum of 2 years. And what do we know about? Weight interventions that happen at 2 years. 2 years, what happens? 2 to 5 years, the weight goes back on. So what are these people going to do? Oh my goodness, these people who are taking an injection every single week for 2 years, they lose 20 pounds and do all the stuff that intentional weight loss does to a human body, fuck up your metabolism, increase your risk for health conditions, fucks with your mental health, What are they going to do after the 2 years? See you later. We're done with you now. Off you go. What's going to happen is that they're going to put weight back on because the treatment has stopped. And even during the treatment, our bodies are going to be like, squeeze me, I don't like this, what's going on? An appetite suppressant every week? Imagine if someone said to you, I saw those teas on Instagram where it helps you shit your pants. I'm going to take that every single week for 2 years. You'd be like, please don't. That doesn't sound great for your health. And this is what this is, right? And the thing is that, guess how much data we have? Guess how much research these motherfuckers did? 1.3 years. We have 1.3 years of research of what happens to people on this drug. Presumably because the information they're presenting shows that after 1.3 years, people start putting weight back on, even though they continue to take the drug. So it's not even as good as a bog standard, diet, where we're at like kind of about 2-ish years, 18 months, 2-ish years, where the weight starts coming back on. So... And then the side effects from this, the one that kind of really made me shudder was suicide ideation, alongside a whole host of other things. So, can people tolerate taking this for 2 years? I mean, aside from the fact of having an injection every week, because like I mentioned, I would do anything. Are they going to survive that 2 years, though, without killing themselves? Like, serious question here. And all for a 20-pound temporary weight loss. Okay, continuing. Clinical trial evidence show that people lose more weight with semaglutide together with supervised weight loss coaching than with support alone. I mean, supervised weight loss coaching. So you're going to be doing both at the same time. You're going to be taking this thing and you're going to be dieting. I mean, this thing is forcing a diet on you, but then presumably people are going to be not eating enough outside of what they are eating to make up for the fact that they're not eating, and then presumably they're going to be, forcing themselves to over-exercise and other things that they hope might induce extra weight loss. It makes me sick. Experts have previously described the drug as a, quote, game changer, and suggested that for the first time, people could achieve through drugs what was only previously possible through weight loss surgery. Oh, for fuck's sake. And again, they're saying it's only possible through weight loss surgery. And as we know, weight loss surgery is all kinds of fucked up. Often doesn't lead to long-term weight loss. Incredibly awful side effects. So many stories of people saying that they regret it terribly. A lot of times short-term weight loss surgery survivors are happy, and even long-term some are happy, but many, more often than not, they're not, having their body mutilated in that way in the hopes of losing weight, and it doesn't work like that. Continuing, in 2020, Boris Johnson launched the government's anti-fatness strategy, which includes plan for a ban on TV and online adverts for food before 9 p.m. and ending deals as buy one, get one free on food which has salt, sugar and fat. Oh, great way to penalise poor people. Because we know that, again, fatness is caused because poor people go and get a buy one, get one free deal. And they eat too much. No. Talk about increasing the shame and stigma. We can't show food on television because, people are just going to be like, oh my God, and just go out and eat it even more. Because, fat people don't have control over themselves and they're just so greedy. That's the end of the article there. I'm going to take a minute here just to, I'm just fucking fed up with this shit. Just have some breaths and exhale the fatphobic bullshit from my body because it's getting on my tits. Okay. Let's both just do that, get rid of that fatphobic bullshit. Let's go to the interview with Lucy. I'll link to Lucy's contact and work because Lucy has done other cool things. You can find Lucy on Twitter at LNEJourno, JOURNO, so LNEJourno on Twitter, and Instagram at Lucy, spell LUCEAY. Okay. But I'll link to that in the show notes too, so you don't have to go looking. Let's go to this interview.
So tell me a little bit about fat activism then, just in general, and about what place it has in your life.
Yeah, so I would describe myself as a fat activist, and for me, it's just about getting equal rights for fat people. And a lot of people are like, well, fat people don't deserve equal rights because it's just don't be fat. There you go, problem solved. And so educating the world on the idea that it's really hard to not be fat, and the reasons why people are fat are in the hundreds, and fat people are not all of these stereotypes that we believe that they are. And so for me, that is what fat activism is educating people that fat people are just people and they deserve the same goodness that everyone else in the world gets.
Okay, so moving on to the topic of this new weight loss jab, which I'm going to try and not chat too much about because I'm very passionate about the topic myself. So we might have a little bit of a proper chat as opposed to just an interview here. I don't know. So do you know much about the weight loss jab? Like, is it something that you've seen about, or do you want me to tell you a little bit about it?
Yeah, no, I know about it. Yeah.
So what is your general like thoughts on this weight loss jab, this supposed game changing weight loss jab?
Game changing.
Yeah.
I just feel so sad about it. Sad for all the fat people who have heard about it and they're like, oh my God, thank fuck, this is the answer to my prayers. And finally, and all of that hope that these fat people are feeling, and all of the glee that the people who have manufactured this, they're like, yes, we're going to make so much fucking money. And then the pain that those fat people are going to feel when they remain fat in the long term, when their health is compromised, when this solution, which has been touted as game changing, doesn't work, and the amount of shame and sadness they are going to feel afterwards when they had such a high, so much hope that their quote problems could be solved. And it's just immensely cruel in many, many different ways. So it just makes me sad. It makes me sad.
And a big part of it that they seem to emphasize in all the articles that are going around about it is this thing of it being like a BMI thing, where people over a BMI of have access to it. And then it goes to even say that on a case-by-case basis, this might come down to and then depending on someone's race, it can come down even further. So BMI is often criticized as being really wrong. Could you tell me a little bit about this and about how BMI can be wrong?
Yeah, because the BMI is 200 years old, created by a statistician, astronomer, who said this is not meant to be measuring individuals. It's a population measurement, and it measured cis white European men, and at the time just said, oh hey, this is what those bodies, what they weigh generally. And then the guidelines of what was quote normal or abnormal were changed thanks to lobbying from diet companies, so that the bands were even lower. It's absolutely arbitrary. The 5 points, literally those numbers were picked out of the air because they were easy to remember, not because of science, not because it's what health is. And it is just really stigmatizing. It pathologizes fat bodies. It says that there is a way that human bodies should be, and it presumes even the words overweight and obese. Obese means haven't eaten until gotten fat. And I mean, that's just fucked up because fat people are fat for many different reasons. And the main one being, it's just a normal way for a human body to be. So all around, it's just unscientific and racist, and just 100% fucked up.
So with the headlines branding the drug as most exciting, game changing, it's hard to ignore how much value the media outlets seem to be putting on the idea of being thin and on thinness. Can you tell me a little bit about fat phobia in general and fat phobia in the media in particular?
Yeah, so it's really, really surprising. It's really surprising to me, but then also kind of not. When we kind of put an amount of trust in publications such as The Guardian to look at the research and dig in and say, is this true or is this a good headline? And I always presumed that if somewhere like The Guardian was reporting something like this, it was very factual, it was very well researched. But if we just scratch the surface a little bit, we can see that we have journalists who are under stress, who are just trying to pump out interesting pieces and are just taking the science at face value versus doing a little bit of research to understand it. And I understand why, because, you know, we live in a capitalist society where it's kind of like you need to bang out articles and pieces and work, you know, at term. And because we live in a fat phobic society. The people writing these pieces, they have their own biases, and these new reports kind of feed into their biases. And so it's kind of like, well, of course this is game changing. Of course this is a great thing to report on without getting critical about the information, because it just is a part of what they already believe. So yeah, I mean, we're all fat phobic. Even I am, because we live in such an incredibly fat phobic society that it's very, very difficult to not have bias around people's body size. And that is going to affect everything that we consume, media that we consume, because the people who are making it are fat phobic.
And there's a lot of misconceptions around sort of weight and health. So could you expand on this? So obviously with the case of like assuming that a fat person is unhealthy or a thin person is healthy, that kind of thing. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, so it's really very well established in our society that, of course, a fat person is going to be unhealthy. What we now know about health and what we know about weight science is that it's actually very, very complicated, and correlation does not equal causation. Yes, fat people are at a higher risk of developing certain conditions, but what we don't know is that it's having more fat on your body that makes it, makes you get that higher risk, more adipose tissue. What we do know, what we do have good evidence to show, is that engaging in intentional weight loss, so going on diets, is a really high risk factor for the complications that fat people can sometimes encounter. So dieting, access to healthcare that is subpar. And so fat people go to the doctor, hey, I've got stubbed my toe. And the doctor says, have you thought about losing weight? So subpar healthcare. And thirdly, shame and stigma. Shame and stigma have a ton of impact on our physical and mental health. And so we do have great evidence to show that those three things, intentional weight loss, subpar medical care, and the shame and stigma that fat people face, has a tremendous impact on health. And so it's not, we don't have the evidence to say it's fatness in and of itself that causes health outcomes. Now, obviously, I want to point out that there are many fat people who are healthy. What is health? Health is such a complicated subject. And there are many thin people who are not healthy. So we can't tell anyone's health status by their body size. And the more that we understand that health is an incredibly complex topic, and so is weight science, the better. And it's not a black and white, you're fat, and the fatter that you are, the more unhealthy you are. It's just lazy and out of date science.
And do you think when the media sort of cover topics like a weight loss injection, do you think it just adds to stigma and it just makes things a lot worse for fat people?
Yeah, because the company who are behind this drug, they've gone on this whole campaign to say, fatness is a disease, don't blame the fatties, it's not their fault they're fat, and trying to position it like, be nice to the fatties, but in that whole process they are doing the opposite. Just doing the opposite. And the idea that this drug is basically an appetite suppressant, it reinforces the idea that fat people are fat because they can't stop eating. And if we just help them stop eating because they can't do it on their own, because they're so greedy and out of control, they need to have a drug because they're so fucked up, and it will help them stop eating. That's what's going to make them thin, because they can't control themselves, so they need to take a drug. I mean, if that's not stigmatizing, then I don't know what is.
And another aspect that I'm sort of interested in talking about this is the fact that sort of eating disorders in particular, they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. There is not just one look of an eating disorder. So this kind of thing, do you have much of an understanding of sort of atypical anorexia, or atypical in the sense of it being with a different weights?
Yeah.
So do you think that this kind of thing is even more out of touch and even more harmful to people who were experiencing eating disorders that don't have the stereotypical eating disorder look?
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. Even that word atypical anorexia, I think we need to get rid of the atypical, because anorexia comes in all shapes and sizes. And as someone who I think that in my past I have suffered from atypical anorexia or anorexia, but if someone is suffering from an eating disorder and they're in a bigger body, they're encouraged. They're just like, good for you for not eating anything and losing weight. But if they're in a smaller body, then all of a sudden it's a problem. And yeah, this presumes that this drug is presuming that someone is eating too much food. If you have an eating disorder, that assumption has been made that you're eating too much food, and you have anorexia, and you're going in and getting this appetite suppressant. Holy shit, I can't even think of the damage that is going to cause mentally and physically to those who have an eating disorder. Especially if they have atypical anorexia. I mean, and all the side effects that the drug already has. It is so risky, it is so damaging, and I think it's going to cause even more eating disorders in fat people.
And as well, I'd just like to ask you about like atypical anorexia in general. So what's your sort of experiences with it? Like, what do you know about the topic of it, especially for people who are in larger bodies who have it?
Well, a lot of times diets are basically the blueprint to help fat people develop atypical anorexia. Diets are prescribing an eating disorder, and if you're prone to, if you're prone to soaking up fat phobic messages, which is, hey, if you've got a brain, and you might have other things going on in your life, then it's just very, very easy to slip into something which is disordered. And the idea between an eating disorder and disordered eating, that line is very, very thin. And a diet basically is prescribing disordered eating. And so it's kind of like you're very close into that developing whatever it is. And previously I had binge eating disorder, and atypical anorexia. And it's like, no shit, when I'm being told that it's a good thing that I starve myself, it's a good thing that I deny myself food. No wonder people develop eating disorders, and atypical anorexia being one of them.
Because obviously the case for people who have atypical anorexia as well, is a lot of the time it's really difficult for them to get treatment because doctors are quite fat phobic, and a lot of them can be quite fat phobic, and they sort of, if you don't meet the requirement of being underweight, or
you won't get treatment.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just encouraged. Yeah, well, I remember going back to my doctor, him weighing me. I'd lost so much weight, and he was like, congratulations, what did you do? Versus, are you okay? What's happening with you? How's your mental health? I see that you've lost a lot of weight, and that's different, and I'm worried, and it would have been very easily picked up if I was in a smaller body, but in a bigger body, it was just praised. And there's no way, if I went in and said, you know what, I'm not eating that much food, and I think about food all the time, and it just, it feels very kind of disordered, then, I can imagine the doctor would just be like, just don't get too crazy with it, just don't go too far, but keep going because you're losing weight, and that is obviously a good thing. So yeah, and even in eating disorder treatment, the rampant fat phobia. It's kind of like if someone don't put on weight, but don't put on too much weight, and if you're fat, we need to manage that weight. I mean, it's just, even if you do get treatment, it will be fat phobic probably.
And is this something that sort of extends into all sort of avenues of life? So aside from like the therapy routes and from doctors, like living with an eating disorder without the stereotypical look? Is it something that is there a lot of stigma that people have to deal with in just general life from other people, like with diet talk and sort of gym talk and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness. Being in recovery from an eating disorder, living in a fat body is so fucking hard, because people will not think twice about talking about their latest diet over lunch, or how that has too many calories, or how I really need to burn off the weekend because I had a glass of wine or whatever. And so it makes it very, very difficult. Whereas if someone is in a smaller body and said, hey, you know, I'm recovering from an eating disorder, then I think people would be very mindful about talking about that type of stuff. But with a fat person, then it's kind of like, well, of course the fat person wants to lose weight and wants to hear about my new weight loss solution, because they're fat. Obviously they don't want to be fat. So it's very, very difficult, because it's not like you can step into a safe space where people are not talking about this stuff.
Okay, so let me wrap up by just kind of giving an overview of everything that we've spoken about, so we have it clear in our brains. For if you are in the UK, and I mean this drug is US as well, and who the fuck knows where else, because it's a worldwide marketing campaign that this company has done to then what they're doing is saying, oh, we're all about taking away the stigma of being fat, and taking away the stigma being it's not fat people's fault that they're fat. And then it's not taking away the stigma at all. Okay, so is there a game-changing new weight loss drug? So there's been hubbub in the UK because Wegovy has been approved for use by the NHS. It's also been approved in the US as well. And so a lot of fat people are excited that there is this new drug that's going to make them thin. So what we know is that the issues with this. One, it's based on the premise that fatness is a disease and a lifelong condition that needs treatment. And in reality, fatness is just a normal way for a human body to exist in the world. Two, it presumes that fat people are fat because we are greedy and eat too much food, and that if only we had this miracle cure to suppress our appetites, we would then be thin. Three, it assumes that thinness equals health. And what we know about this drug is that the side effects are long and dangerous, and the longer term side effects have not been studied because we only have just over a year's worth of data that's been examined, supplied by this company. So yeah, and what we know about long-term weight loss drugs is that there are many side effects that include death. So this is going to kill fat people. 4, there is no evidence that it actually improves health. We don't have evidence that it improves health. 5, it does nothing to address the actual things that hurt the health of fat people. And those things are things that hurt the health of fat people. 1, intentional weight loss, which this is. 2, subpar healthcare, which this is. And 3, weight stigma. And so that's the shame that fat people face. And so this drug is actually increasing all of those things. So presumably decreasing the health of fat people. 6, it doesn't actually help people lose much weight. The studies show that the weight loss is about 20 pounds, which for a fat person is certainly not game-changing. 7, all that in exchange for weekly injections that when you stop taking, the effects are going to be reversed. Or even if you do continue to take for the rest of your life, which you won't be allowed to because the prescription length is only 2 years, your body is probably going to take over and force you to get back to a higher weight because of this appetite suppressant that is going on. And finally, 8, it's a drug that claims to fix a disease that doesn't exist. It doesn't have evidence that it works long time and that it doesn't cause catastrophic harm, just like every other weight loss drug that we've ever seen on the market that's been approved. And even if it does work long term in the way that it does short term, it's only around 20 pounds that people will lose, all in exchange for weekly injections and side effects like increased suicide ideation. This drug is going to kill fat people, and it is going to cause a ton of shame and heartbreak for the fat people who are desperately hoping that it's going to be their miracle cure. And what they're going to feel afterwards, they've taken it for the 2 years and they are the same weight, a higher weight, their health hasn't improved. It's a waste of hope when we could be seeking to increase our health with interventions that are actually evidence-based, like health at every size. So I think we all need to go and have like a little sit down, I don't know, a little kind of like a fuck you to something, I don't know. I just have such empathy for the people who are so excited about this. You know, if I was not in this world and I saw in this, you know, fat positive world, and I saw that there was going to be a drug, I would be just daydreaming about what my life was going to be like when I was after I would lose weight, and how wonderful it's going to be, and all sorts of things, only for my hopes to be dashed in the next couple of years, only for my mental health to really see tremendous pain going on from those hopes that are dashed, and the shame of like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I lose weight even when I have a fucking drug that an injection I'm taking every week? Why can't I lose weight? What is wrong with me? I'm disgusting. You know, I can't. You know, and the amount of eating disorders that are it's gonna create. Imagine, you know, like, because, you know, my history with eating disorder is, you know, basically the lack of access to food, physically, mentally, created binge eating in me naturally, because that is what happens. And imagine having an appetite suppressant, how that's going to add to that. Anyway, let's make next episode better, happier, less rage-inducing, shall we? Well, it's going to be another episode. It's going to be the last episode actually with Summer. So I don't know what we're going to do it on. Summer's off. Actually, it's not going to be with Summer because Summer's off on a holiday. So it's going to be a few weeks until we have Summer on again. So I don't know. Let's make next episode something funny or something. I'm going to make a note. Try and remember to not make it so fucking depressing. Anyway, okay, well, go and watch something. Go and watch some pictures of cats or something. I don't know, some penguins, gay penguins making a baby or whatever, to make you happy. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Stay fierce, fatty. Goodbye, crocodile. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fat phobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.